So in this video, I'm going to be talking about whether or not you should consider getting a Nikon DSLR and mirrorless, and what's the difference or the big difference between the dying age of Nikon DSLRs and should or should you not upgrade? What's the difference between these two brands and types of shooting camera styles? And should you finally consider to upgrade your Nikon camera? Stay tuned. So if you're watching this, chances are you probably have a Nikon or a DSLR, and I don't want to get into the super science of it all, but DSLR stands for Digital Single Reflex Camera. Correct me if I'm wrong. And essentially what that means is there is a mirror within your camera. And let's picture kind of an image, right? Here is the image. It's going into the camera. It'll make sense once I edit and put the graphic overlay, trust me. So the image is going into the camera, and there's a mirror here. It bounces off of the mirror and goes up into another mirror and then goes into the sensor. So essentially everything your DSLR is actually seeing is similar to the human eye. So everything is backwards and it gets flipped while it's in the camera. And that's the basic gist of DSLRs. Now, mirrorless is exactly what it sounds like. Take, for example, Sony a6500. As you can see here, there is no simple mirror system that it bounces in and out. It's simply you can just see the sensor is right there, and there is no other mechanism. What you see is what you get. That is the sensor. And essentially how mirrorless cameras work is that they just capture images as is without that mechanism of similar to DSLRs. And you're wondering, what is the main difference and why are they so expensive? And should I consider finally upgrading my camera? Well, I'm gonna list pros and cons of each and whether or not you should consider getting a mirrorless camera in 2020 and going forward. So the overall benefits of using a DSLR is that it's cheaper. You have better lens selections and variety because they have been around longer, and it is more reliable because the technology behind DSLRs have been around for quite some time now. And let's go over to mirrorless. So essentially the contrast of that is that it is newer technology. Prices and cameras do get expensive, and if you're planning to stick within the Nikon lineup, they have the cameras now like the Z50 and the Z6, and they're both mirrorless cameras. One is APS-C and the other one's full frame, and you're looking to spend anywhere from $1,500 plus on top of their lenses, and you're spending another $1,000 to $2,000 because Nikon mirrorless cameras don't have a lot of lens selections and they're quite pricey, and you're looking at spending $2,000 plus on their technology and their equipment, and you don't have a lot of selection. But I'll link in the description below if you want to check those out. So why would you want to invest in a DSLR versus a mirrorless? That is the big question, and it is slowly becoming a trend that mirrorless are gonna die out. That's not mirrorless. DSLR is gonna die out because it is old technology. Because one of the issues with using DSLRs is that DSLRs are quite bulky because of their technology and having that extra mirror within the camera, meaning that chances are you won't find a slim DSLR. Those two words don't really go hand in hand. But as you can see with mirrorless cameras, you see how compact that is with my a6500. It is essentially half the size of my Nikon D50-200, as you can see there. And for what it's capable of, which I'll go into the next point, is that the big issue with DSLRs is that autofocus, especially if you're a videographer, autofocus with DSLRs is a big headache because it has to reflect the image, and as well as its technology, where just hands down mirrorless cameras do pretty well with autofocus, especially for video. Yes, you have your exceptions if you want to consider things like Canon and their STM lenses, and they have more of a I guess they're one of the exceptions when it comes to autofocus. But the reality is mirrorless cameras have much more better autofocus. It's much more compact, but the only issue is that they are quite pricey, and if you want to invest in a mirrorless camera, you're looking to spend $1,000 or more, not only in the camera body, but also in the lens selection itself. So my recommendation as a mirrorless and a DSLR user is that if you're just beginning, feel free to use DSLRs. But also understand that DSLRs are going to be quote unquote dead or dying. And even companies like Nikon have to reinvest their budget because Nikon as a company is dying. That's just plain fact. They're losing their employees, their revenue is going down. So they have to think of a way. And now they're actually investing into mirrorless cameras, but that might be too late, but I'll talk about this in another video. But if you're looking into upgrading and why you should upgrade, because DSLRs and 4K don't really go hand in hand. Almost all mirrorless cameras now that you invest in have to shoot in 4K. My D5200 cannot shoot in 4K. There's not a good auto-focusing system, especially for video, and I've made so many videos on that. Link is in the description below. And it's really pick and choose. If you are let's say a budget enthusiast and you're a beginner and you just want to film YouTube videos, hell, I'm all for it. Hell, you're watching this right now on a DSLR. But if you're looking into more professional videos, mirrorless cameras are the way to go, whether that's the Fuji film, the X-T3s, or the Panasonics, the Sonys. That is more of the end to go if you want to look into mirrorless cameras. Like I said, if you're more of a budget-friendly person, DSLRs, definitely invest in them, and you don't really want to upgrade. But if you're wanting to future-proof yourself and your gear, I would suggest your first purchase be a mirrorless camera. And if you're on a budget and you're like, hey, why are you such a Nikon fanboy? The reality is I'm not. I've actually used Sonys before. I've used for work Sony A7S2s, and currently using the A6500. And the reason why is because these are Sony's mid-range cameras, and they are quite in the more, I'd say, friendlier price bracket. Because if you're looking for staying within the Nikon lineup and you want to go mirrorless, you're looking quite at the hefty expense of $2,000 plus. If you're looking at their Z50 models or the Z6 and, correct me if I'm wrong, Z5, but which is why I myself have not looked into getting a Nikon mirrorless camera. But who knows, technology may come, or Nikon itself might just collapse as a company. Who knows? But yeah, that is my little overview, and I hope it gives you a little bit of a clear sense of mind of if you're actually consider going mirrorless, should you stick with Sony or Nikon or this and that? I'm gonna let you decide. So let me know in the comments, are you staying with DSLRs or are you going mirrorless? And this time around the year, I just wanted to help you guys, and I put a lot of time and resource into my fastest guide to becoming a filmmaker or videographer, even if you have a Nikon camera. Link is in this description. Literally answers all your guys' questions, like how do I autofocus? What are the best settings? What are the lenses do I need, and all the equipment. It does get a little overwhelming. So I made a step-by-step guide that I am offering you guys. Check out, link in the description, of literally everything, and I will walk you through. I literally will grab your hand and walk you through all the steps, and you can see me do it live in the description below. Check that resource out. And my name is Peter. You're watching Broke Visionary Collective, where we all start with nothing, but you can always create something. Cheers.